Hey traders, it's Phil with Spikeet. Today we're going to be going over how to run a basic small cap scan to get everything that you need on that Excel datasheet to conduct your research. So, getting right into it, what exactly are we filtering for? Well, we're filtering for a couple of different things here. The first being that the stock has to open above 50 cents a share. We don't want anything too cheap, like a 1 cent stock or a 2 cent stock, for example. We also need to have eyes on the stock as well. So we want pre-market volume of at least 1.5 million shares being traded, and that's from 4 a.m. to 9:29 a.m. just before market open. We don't want multi-billion dollar market caps like Apple, Amazon, Nvidia. So we're looking to max the market cap out at 500 million. We want companies with under 500 million in market cap in our data set. Moving on to float, this is probably the most important point here. 99% of the data providers do not provide accurate float data. Spikeet does. This is very important because as you're going back through your backtest, you need to make sure that if you're filtering off a float, that the float is actually correct. Otherwise, all of your metrics are going to be completely incorrect. And lastly, we have the gap percentage. The gap percentage we're going to be using today is simply just 40% gaps, and we're going to be comparing that from the previous day's closing price to today's current open price. So this is the main layout you'll see when you first log in. Normally you could use the tip I showed you and let the AI handle it automatically, but I want to walk you through the filters manually so you get a solid understanding of how the product works. Here's where, of course, you would put in the filters for the AI tool, but I'm going to click here on the manual data, or the old way as we call it, and you're going to get to this page. You're going to see four main sections, starting with the date range. We have to put a name for the scan, so we're just going to call this 40% gaps overview, which I already have listed here. For the date range, you can choose any date dating back to 2008. For us, we're just going to start with the first of the year to today's date, and then we get here. So now we're talking about filters. And what do filters actually show? Filters are what tickers we want to see on our spreadsheet. So if we want stocks with specific criteria met, it will be from the filter sheet. The identity section is the first filter section that we have, and it tells us exactly what we're searching for. For our purposes, we want to be looking at all common stock and stock ADRs. That falls under the security class section here, so we're going to click that, and we're going to set the condition to is stock common and stock ADR, and add that filter here. We're not interested in any ETFs or preferred stock or warrant or unit stocks for our studies. We're just going to be looking at the stock common and stock ADR. Moving on to the next filter that we have, this is the daily section, and it's based on the 9:30 a.m. open price and 4 p.m. close price of the day. So we want to see stocks that are over 50 cents at a bare minimum. So the 9:30 open, we want unadjusted greater than 0.50. And you're probably asking me, well, Phil, what is the difference between unadjusted and adjusted data? We're going to get into that right now. Many traders use both adjusted and unadjusted data. There's not really a right way to go about it. It just depends on what suits you, but it's important to understand the difference between the two. So, unadjusted data is the raw numbers as they happened in real time, and adjusted data is the numbers modified later to account for changes like stock splits, dividends, or corporate actions. So a good example would be, let's say you're going back on data and the day that the stock traded, it was actually 25 cents. And like let's say like a month later, they had a reverse split, and you're looking at data months from that point, right? You're going to go back if you have unadjusted data and see the prices during the day where the raw numbers were. If you go back on the adjusted data, you may be looking at that stock and it's a $10 price point. So for us, if we're filtering stocks over 50 cents, it's important to make sure that when we go back through our data that it is unadjusted so that we're seeing the raw numbers, because we don't want a stock that was actually trading at 25 cents, but in our data it says it's trading at $10 simply because we're using adjusted data. So continuing on here, we have the indicator section. We're not going to be using this for our purposes. You can look at other videos that we have and see if this indicator or this filter here would fit you, but we're going to kind of skip this and move on to the fundamental section here. And in the fundamental section, we're going to use this to determine the market cap. And it's as simple as clicking market cap, choosing less than, and we're going to put 500 million. We're going to be using this filter section here. For us, we want to see a float of greater than 500,000. And this is to ensure we aren't getting any nano floats or ones that have, I guess you could say, a high chance of taking us out of the game if you're a short seller. Um, Moving on here now to the custom formulas. This is the last section in the filter spot. Before getting into it, I just want to reiterate that we are in the filter section. So the filter section is what stocks are going to be showing up on scan. And what we put in the column section, which is next, is what stocks we see from the tickers we selected. So for the custom formula section, it's broken down into three parts. The first is the common formulas page here that we're on. This is where you're going to find the most used formulas from traders. And for us, we need a gap percentage of over 40%. So it's as simple as clicking the gap percentage, making it greater, and then putting the condition to 40, and then adding the filter, and you're going to see this as gap percentage. So again, this is not going to show up in any columns in your Excel. It's just saying that every ticker on this sheet has to have a gap percentage of at least 40%. Now, we also have the build your own word section here, and this is where you're going to find various codes for your backtest. So for example, I already have it listed here a little bit. If you want to put the pre-market volume over 1.5 million and use the custom formula, you would just put pre-market volume, and it gives you the code. So it's saying that the intraday, right? So here we're just going to copy the code, and this leads me into the build your own code. The intraday, right? So today from 4 o'clock to 9:29, the total volume is greater than what? Greater than 1.5 million. And now we can add that filter. So already we added it in the intraday section, but if you wanted to come down here, this is how you would use the custom formulas. So you could build your own words, take these, and there's multiple things too, like outside the volume, yesterday's volume, tomorrow's volume, anything that you want to use, you're going to copy the code and you're going to bring it on over here to build your own code and customize it to your liking. Now that we've finally completed all of the filters, we need to move on to the next section, which is the column section here. And remember, the column section is how we analyze the data. So what metrics we want to see in our Excel sheet and what's actually important to analyze. So first up, we have the identity section, right? So this is where we want to see what symbols we're actually trading, what country they're from. So if we want to know if they're Chinese, if they're American, and that can influence our data sets. We want to use whichever fits the scan best. There's multiple data points to choose from as well. You can even add the security class if you want to. It's kind of up to you here, but again, this is what's going to show up in your Excel sheet. So you're going to see a column with the symbol, a column with the country, and a column with the security class. Next up on the chopping block, we have the daily data point. So we want to know the date for each. We want to know the exchange that each stock traded on. We want to have a column for the open, a column for the high, a column for the low, the close. We also want to know the total volume on the day itself. So we're going to get a column for each and every one of these. Okay. So continuing down, we have the intraday data point. Now, we want to analyze the volume. So it's not enough for me just to know that we have a filter for the volume over 1.5 million. What if I want to get more granular? What if I want to see exactly what volume is for each ticker to determine if I want to move my volume threshold up, maybe loosen it even more? So this right here is going to show the volume for each ticker. We're going to select volume. We're going to have the unadjusted, the sum on the day from 4 a.m. to 9:29 a.m. We're going to see the total volume of each and every stock, whether it's of course going to be over 1.5 million since we set that into our filter section. But I want to know, maybe we want to put volume to 2 million. Maybe we want to put volume to 3 million. We're only going to know that by casting a wide net and analyzing the volume of each and every individual stock. We are going to be skipping over the daily indicator here and the intraday indicator. We're not using these for our purposes. Moving to the fundamental section, we are going to be using market cap. So it's as simple as clicking the market cap and adding the column. I want to know every single market cap, even though I know all of them are under 500 million. I want to see which ones are 100 million, which ones are 200 million, 300 million to determine maybe I should change my threshold as I get more data. Very similarly to the fundamental here, we are going to input the float for each stock. And we're also going to add the institutional ownership and shares just to kind of see if this matters or not. Maybe it doesn't matter for our scan, maybe it does. Again, these are all columns, so we're just going to be analyzing the data. We did not set any institutional ownership requirements on this scan, so we're going to be getting various different ones. The float, again, I know that they're all over 500,000, but maybe we want to say, hey, we only want to trade floats over 1 million, 2 million. We're only going to know that by casting a wide net and seeing all of the data that we have. Hitting our last spot here, we're not going to go over the earnings because it doesn't pertain to the scan, but we're going to hit these custom formulas. And again, these are for the column custom formulas. So we already know that every stock on a sheet is going to have a gap of at least 40%, but maybe we want to get into a little bit more detail. So we could see, I don't know, gaps of 50%, 60%, 70%. We're going to go and choose gap percentage. We're going to name it in Excel as gap percentage, and we're going to add the column. So now we're going to see one column that says gap percentage. Let's say you wanted to also see the total pre-market volume. We know it's going to be over 1.5 million, but let's say we want to know if it's 2 million, 3 million, 4 million to see if we want to change up our volume minimum. We're going to label that as pre-market volume and then add the column as well. And so you can kind of play around with these tools, but that pretty much sums up exactly how we're going to be using the filters and columns. And now we kind of just have to go and get the result. To get the results, we're just going to press the review button and go through the prompts there. Let's get these results. So review, get data, have it load. So in the status section here, you're going to see whether it's pending or finished. And when it's finished, that's when we can actually go and click into the data. Now that it's finished loading, what we're going to do is just hop on over here to the view data section and click it. So now we're presented with this spreadsheet. We have all the stocks that have met the filters, and we also have all of the columns that we selected too, like the open, high, low, close, volume, float, institutional ownership, shares, market cap, gap percentage, pre-market volume, the whole thing. So now we have every metric we need to be analyzing this properly. Now you may be wondering, hey, is there an actual easier way to get this data? The answer is yes. Instead of doing all of that, which we did manually, we're just going to go here to the AI and input the exact same filters that we had. So for filters, it's just opening over 50 cents, stocks trading with 1.5 million total in pre-market volume, stocks with a market cap of under 500 million, stocks with a float of over 500K, and the gap percentage of at least 40% from the previous trading day. In our columns, I'm just going to put that we want the float and pre-market volume. So it's as simple as pressing Get Data with AI and waiting for the results. Now that the results have finished, where are we going to go to make sure that the filters and columns actually lined up? Instead of actually opening the view data section, we're going to press the show filters and columns, which is going to bring us here. We're going to look at the filters and just triple check that the AI got everything correct. So the stock is common stock or ADR. The stock is on NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. The float is greater than 500,000. The market cap is less than 500 million. The open price is greater than 50 cents. The pre-market volume is greater than 1.5 million. And it's up over 40% from the previous day's close. So it looks like it got all of the filters correct. And the columns, we have the symbol, the date, the float, and of course the pre-market volume. So everything was done for you. It took 1 minute and 26 seconds to load the words that you put in here to the AI instead of having to do everything manually. And that basically wraps it up here for me. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, a comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, reach out to me on YouTube, Discord, or Twitter, and I'll see you next time.